Hello, and welcome to another Rant Rave review during Get Caught Reading Month, and it is our fourth true crime review. Again, forensics this time. We're going to be talking about Death's Acre, Inside the Legendary Forensic Lab, The Body Farm, Where the Dead Do Tell Tales, and its sequel, Beyond the Body Farm, a legendary bone detective explores murders, mysteries, and the revolution in forensic science. These are by Dr. Bill Bass and John Jefferson. First, before I forget, some more true crime swag, because I'm supposed to show these every time. I'm running out of true crime swag. I don't have enough of it, because it's really hard to find. But I did take a Citizens Police Academy class, which was super fun. We learned all kinds of crazy nonsense, and it was amazing. And if your police department has that, I highly recommend that you take it. Something like that, where they just talk about different law enforcement things. Anyway, that's my PSA, brought to you by my weird obsessions with true crime. Okay, so Death's Acre and Beyond the Body Farm. First of all, what's the Body Farm? If you don't know, it is a research laboratory run by the University of Tennessee. Bill Bass is the guy who runs it. Or ran it. He's still he's like in his 90s or something. But anyway, they take cadavers and they leave them to the elements and study their decomposition. Yeah, and it's super important to forensics and it's super cool. So basically, Death's Acre is really more of a memoir of Bill Bass or William Bass. I don't know. Bill Bass, it says on one book, and William Bass, it says on the other. I don't know. I'm calling Bill Bass. It's a memoir talking about how he started out in just physical anthropology, normal, studying Indian bones, etc. And then eventually he moved on to forensic anthropology, which is, some of it is studying bones and such to see how people died, but a lot of it is to try and identify bodies and bones. Like, this person went missing and we found these bones. Do they match? Or we found a random body. Whose is it? How can we start even beginning to think about who it might be if they're just bones? And it's really cool. He talks a lot about how they, over the time, I guess once upon a time, forensic anthropologists used to be called bone detectives, which is really rad. But it's basically this big body, it's a body of, what do you call it? Data, where they've taken thousands of measurements of, femurs and different bones in the body, length of legs, shape of pelvis, shape of skull and nose and eye sockets and brow ridge and all these different things to basically be able to find correlations. So they can tell just by looking at your skeleton what your race was, what your sex was, what your age was, all these different things based on how your body grows, how different races kind of evolved. Like, it's really cool. It's super cool. I don't know. I think it's neat. And the fact is that it's this huge, they've studied thousands and thousands of bodies to get this research and measurement. It's quite cool. So he talks about that. He talks about many of his cases of trying to identify different bodies and weird things that happened. Several mix-ups when he was still learning. He's like, I don't know, and that's why he really started the Body Farm, because there were several times where people asked him, how long has this body been dead? And he got it totally wrong because people didn't know, how to study a body in particular and figure these things out. So that's really cool. He does talk about, if you've ever seen CSI ever, the whole studying bugs entomology, because it's really weird. Okay, this part wasn't part of it was in the book, and then I went to Wikipedia to read more about it. As soon as a creature dies, for some reason, as soon as the brain waves or heart waves or something stop, the body starts producing this scent. There's actually a weird, it's like cadaverine or some stupid name. There's two different chemicals that are produced when amino acids break down, and that smell is what attracts blowflies. And it's instant. As soon as you die, basically, bam, blowflies are like, oh, there's some prime real estate, let's go. So, and then they lay their eggs, and then there's different stages of blowflies. So if you study what stage different flies are in on the body. You can tell how long it's been dead. And then that's one really cool thing. His graduate student came up with that. He has like tons of graduate students who are like all amazing people in forensics who've pioneered never before seen things. That's pretty cool. So there's the blowflies, skull measurements. Oh, there's another thing called, I don't remember the name of it, but obviously if a person dies, in the frozen Alps, their body's gonna be way more well preserved and less putrid than someone who dies on a hot Phoenix day with no air conditioning. Obviously, temperature and humidity affect decomposition, and so they actually have degree days. They're called degree days, where rather than being like, oh, they've been dead for this many days, they can say, if we found the body on this day and we know that the temperatures in this area have been blah, blah, blah for the past week or so, how many degree days is that? And they basically can measure and figure out how long you've actually been dead. So cool. Super fascinating. So I just think the Death's Acre is really, really neat. Highly recommended if you're into forensics or anything like that. It was also really poignant, unexpectedly poignant. So, because it is a memoir, he talks about how his own father committed suicide when Bill Bass was like 3 years old. He talks about two of his wives died from, I want to say cancer or maybe a disease or something, but it's like really sad. Like, what the heck? Why are these feels like out of nowhere? Okay. But yeah, it was good and like satisfying. Good book. Beyond the Body Farm is okay. It is not as good for me. Some people, it's not a bad book, but I personally did not care for it, and I'll say why. Number one, I'm way more into old-fashioned forensics. So the title, did I read the title? A legendary bone detective explores murders, mysteries, and the revolution in forensic science. Very, very heavy on the revolution in forensic science aspect. He talks about several different databases that are now available. Really cool. They're really cool databases, actually. They're super important for forensics. There's one where you can enter in different measurements of skulls and bodies and bones and all that, and it like spits out like, oh, this is what their race and age, etc. is, because we studied thousands of people to get that data into a usable format. He talks about people who, I think they're just called forensic artists, where they take a skull and they're like, oh, well, your cheeks are like this squishy and your, forehead's less squishy, and they can actually like put, based on what the race and age of the skull is telling them, they can like reconstruct the face out of clay to try and get people, they put the skull reconstructed clay model basically on the news and say, do you know this person? And then people will be like, oh, I recognize that person. It's so cool. That I am into, but the databases, and he talks about DNA. He also talks about why DNA is not super useful, and I'm just not as into that. It's really important for forensics, and it's really cool that we have that available to fight crime, but me personally, I'm just like not as into reading about it. I'm like, okay, databases, DNA, yeah, like I'm just not as into it. I really like the whole idea of like, these people are studying like hands-on. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just more into that, I guess. So yeah, the other reason I did not care for it, Beyond the Body Farm, was I listened to both books on audiobook. Both of them were on Hoopla, but they were produced by different companies, because the first one, Bill Bass did the preface, or whatever, introduction. He read it himself, and he sounds like a little old man. I think he's in his 90s now. He was probably like in his 80s or 70s when he recorded that, okay? So he's a little old man, little old white man. And then the narrator for the rest of the book sounded like a similarly little old white man. And then in Beyond the Body Farm, it's this like super deep, smooth voiced like person who I can only imagine to be like a hulking black man in the prime of life, like not an octogenarian or septuagenarian. Like it was completely different. I can't picture this guy and this tiny guy. Not that Bill Bass is tiny, but he sounds tiny. So I was like, this is not like, It's not. Maybe if I'd heard it first and then heard the other voice, I would have been okay, but it was kind of distracting. I actually did have to listen to half the book twice to, like, make it go in my brain. Anyway, highly recommend Death's Acre. Kind of recommend Beyond the Body Farm. There's nothing against Beyond the Body Farm. It's just not my cup of tea. Yeah, and I think that's all I have to say for now. Next week is a very special Get Caught Reading Rant Rave review. I will be reviewing a forensic book, and I will be reviewing a very interesting true crime book. It's about police and detectives. You'll see. It's pretty great. Bye-bye.